The autumn rain hammered against the windows of Meridian, one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants, where reservations were booked months in advance, and the average entree cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. The soft amber lighting reflected off crystal glasses and polished silverware, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance that made every patron feel like they were part of something extraordinary. Dr. Marcus Ashford sat at his usual corner table, the one with the perfect view of the Charles River, even through the rain-streaked windows. At 42, he had everything a man could want. A thriving cardiothoracic surgery practice, a penthouse in Back Bay, and a personal net worth that had recently crossed into billionaire territory thanks to his medical device patents. His tailored Tom Ford suit fit perfectly across his broad shoulders, and his salt and pepper hair was styled with the kind of casual precision that took actual effort to achieve. Across from him sat Victoria Chen, a corporate attorney he'd been seeing for 3 months. She was beautiful, intelligent, and perfectly suitable, his mother's words, not his. Victoria was currently discussing a case involving pharmaceutical patent law, her manicured hands gesturing gracefully as she spoke. Marcus nodded at appropriate intervals, but his attention kept drifting to the entrance. That's when he saw her. Emma Rodriguez stood just inside the doorway, her dark hair dampened by rain, despite the umbrella she clutched in one hand. She wore a simple navy dress that Marcus recognized from at least 2 years ago, back when they were together. Her other hand held tightly to a small figure, a boy, maybe 4 years old, with Emma's same warm brown eyes and a mop of dark curls that were plastered to his forehead. Marcus's wineglass stopped halfway to his lips. His heart, the organ he'd spent his career repairing in others, seemed to forget its rhythm for several beats. Emma's eyes scanned the restaurant with visible anxiety. The maitre d' Pierre approached her with the kind of polite skepticism reserved for walk-ins at establishments like Meridian. Marcus couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read Emma's body language, the apologetic smile, the slight hunch of her shoulders, the way she squeezed the boy's hand a little tighter. "Marcus, are you listening?" Victoria's voice cut through his distraction. "I'm sorry, Victoria. Excuse me for just a moment." Titidi, Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping softly against the hardwood floor. He crossed the restaurant in long strides, his expensive leather shoes silent on the polished wood. As he approached, he caught fragments of the conversation. "I understand you don't take walk-ins, but please, I have a reservation confirmation email. There must be some mistake," Emma was saying, her voice strained but controlled. The little boy pressed against her leg, his eyes wide as he took in the fancy surroundings. "Madame, I have no reservation under Rodriguez for this evening," Pierre replied, his tone professional but firm. "Emma." Marcus's voice came out rougher than he intended. She turned, and the color drained from her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The restaurant's ambient noise, the gentle clink of silverware, the murmur of conversation, the soft jazz playing overhead, seemed to fade into background static. "Marcus," she breathed, "I didn't know you'd be here." "It's my regular spot." He glanced down at the boy, who was now staring up at him with frank curiosity. "I didn't know you—" "This is Liam," Emma said quickly, her hand moving to rest protectively on the child's shoulder. "My son." The math hit Marcus immediately. 4 years old. They'd broken up 4.5 years ago, after a bitter argument about priorities and futures. She'd wanted commitment, stability, a family. He'd wanted to focus on his career, on building his practice, on the innovations that would eventually make him wealthy beyond measure. "There seems to be some confusion with her reservation," Pierre interjected, clearly uncomfortable with the interaction. Marcus made a decision in a split second, the kind of decisive action that made him excellent in the operating room. "She's with me," he said softly, meeting Pierre's gaze directly. The maitre d' froze, his professional composure cracking slightly. "Dr. Ashford, you already have—" "She's with me," Marcus repeated, more firmly this time. "Please prepare a table for 3 near the fireplace. The child will need a booster seat. Emma's eyes widened. Marcus, no, I can't. We'll find somewhere else. I don't want to interrupt your... She'd noticed Victoria then, watching from Marcus's table with an expression that was difficult to read. Understanding dawned in Emma's eyes, followed quickly by embarrassment. You're on a date. God, Marcus, I'm so sorry. This was a mistake. She started to turn, tugging Liam's hand. Emma, wait. Marcus reached out but stopped short of touching her arm. You came here for dinner. Let me help. I came here because my ex-husband is supposed to have Liam tonight, but he cancelled last minute. Again. I had this reservation for a client meeting that got postponed, and I thought just once I'd take my son somewhere special, but I can't afford to impose on your evening. The boy, Liam, spoke up for the first time. Mummy said they have mac and cheese here. Real fancy mac and cheese. His voice was small, but hopeful, and it did something to Marcus's carefully constructed walls. Marcus looked at Emma, really looked at her, the fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, the weariness in her posture despite her straight spine, the worn strap of her purse, the scuffed but polished shoes. She was fighting, he realized, fighting to give her son moments of magic in what was clearly a difficult situation. The table near the fireplace, Pierre. Now. Marcus's voice held the authority of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions. As Pierre hurried away, Marcus finally allowed himself to meet Victoria's gaze across the room. She was already reaching for her phone, her expression neutral, but her message clear. This evening was over. Emma shook her head. Marcus, I can't let you do this. Your date was already ending, Marcus said, which wasn't entirely true, but felt true enough in the moment. Please, Emma, let me do this. For Liam. He looked down at the boy, who was now smiling shyly up at him, still clutching his mother's hand. And Marcus realized, with a clarity that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that everything he thought he had figured out about his life was about to be completely upended. Okay, Emma whispered finally. Thank you. As Pierre returned to escort them to their new table, Marcus watched Emma guide her son through the restaurant, her protective hand on his small shoulder. And he wondered, not for the first time that evening, what other mistakes he'd made in the name of success. The fireplace crackled softly, casting dancing shadows across the intimate table where Marcus now sat across from Emma and Liam. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Boston skyline glittered against the dark October evening, rain still streaking down the glass in rivulets that caught the city lights. Marcus had returned to Victoria's table just long enough for a brief, awkward conversation. She'd been gracious about it, more gracious than he deserved, but they both knew this was the end of whatever they'd been building. She'd kissed his cheek, whispered, "Good luck," and left through the rain with her driver, her Louboutin heels clicking purposefully against the floor. Now, watching Liam color enthusiastically on the paper menu the staff had provided, Marcus felt like he'd stepped into an alternate dimension of his own life. "The crayons are special here," Liam announced, holding up a burgundy Crayola. "Mommy says they cost more than regular crayons," Emma laughed, the sound both embarrassed and genuine. "I said the food costs more, sweetheart, not the crayons." "Oh." Liam considered this, then went back to his drawing. "I'm making you a dinosaur, Mommy." "A happy one?" Marcus found himself smiling. "Are there unhappy dinosaurs?" "The ones that turned into fossils probably weren't super happy about it," Liam replied matter-of-factly, not looking up from his artwork. Emma caught Marcus's eye, and they shared a moment of surprised laughter. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. "He's brilliant," Marcus said quietly. "He's 4, Emma replied, but her pride was evident. "Though yes, he's been reading since he was 3. His preschool teacher says he's gifted, but I think he's just curious about everything." A server appeared with their drinks, a scotch for Marcus, water for Emma, and chocolate milk for Liam, served in a small crystal glass that made the boy's eyes go wide. "Emma," Marcus began once the server had retreated, "I need to ask—" "He's not yours," Emma said quietly, reading his mind like she always had. If that's what you're wondering. I met Daniel about 3 months after we ended things. We got married too quickly, had Liam, and divorced before his second birthday. Marcus felt an unexpected wave of something, not quite relief, not quite disappointment. I wasn't going to ask that. Yes, you were. Emma took a sip of water. It's okay. The timeline would make it possible. But no, Liam's father is very much in the picture, sporadically anyway. The ex-husband who cancelled tonight? Emma's jaw tightened. Daniel is complicated. He's a musician. He loves Liam in his own way, but he's not reliable. His band got a gig in New York tonight, so he texted me 3 hours ago to cancel his weekend with his son. Again. Liam, apparently listening despite his focus on coloring, piped up. Daddy plays guitar. He's really good but really busy. The casual acceptance in the child's voice broke something in Marcus's chest. This boy, at 4 years old, had already learned not to expect reliability from one of the people who should be most constant in his life. "What about you?" Marcus asked Emma. "What have you been doing?" "I'm a paralegal now, at a small firm in Cambridge. The pay isn't great, but the hours are manageable, and they let me work from home twice a week." She traced the rim of her water glass with one finger. "It's not what I imagined, but it works. Liam's in a good preschool program, and we have a small apartment in Somerville. We're okay." But Marcus could read between the lines. The reservation she'd mentioned was probably a splurge she couldn't really afford. The dress she wore was years old. The worry lines around her eyes spoke of nights spent calculating bills and stretching paychecks. "I looked you up," Emma admitted suddenly, "after I saw your name in the news last year. The Ashford valve. That was your invention, right? The FDA approval was a big deal." "It saves lives," Marcus said simply. "But it also made me more money than I know what to do with." "Then why do you look so unhappy?" The question was direct. Vintage Emma. She'd never been afraid to cut through his defenses. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat, because she was right. He had everything he'd thought he wanted, the success, the recognition, the wealth. But sitting here, watching Liam carefully color his dinosaur, seeing Emma's gentle smile as she helped her son, Marcus felt the hollowness of his accomplishments more acutely than ever. Their food arrived. Perfectly prepared salmon for Marcus, chicken piccata for Emma, and the promised mac and cheese for Liam, topped with crispy breadcrumbs and served in a small cast-iron skillet. "Whoa!" Liam whispered reverently, staring at his meal. "Remember what we practiced?" Emma prompted gently. Liam nodded seriously and looked at Marcus. "Thank you for dinner, Dr. Marcus. It's very nice of you." The formality of it, taught by a mother trying to instill gratitude and manners in her son, made Marcus's throat tight. "You're welcome, Liam. Thank you for joining me." As they ate, the conversation flowed more naturally. Emma told him about Liam's obsession with space, his collection of dinosaur facts, his best friend Noah from preschool. Marcus found himself sharing stories from his work, carefully edited versions about patients he'd helped, breakthroughs in cardiac surgery that even a 4-year-old found fascinating. "You fix people's hearts?" Liam asked. His fork paused midway to his mouth. "I do. That's like a superhero power." Marcus smiled. "It's actually just a lot of school and practice, but I like thinking of it that way." "Can you fix sad hearts too?" The question was innocent, but it landed with weight. Emma's hand stilled on her fork. "Liam, honey, Dr. Marcus fixes the physical heart, the one that pumps blood." "Oh." Liam thought about this. "What about the feelings heart? Who fixes that?" No one answered immediately. The question hung in the air, profound in its childhood simplicity. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I think people fix that heart for each other, by being kind, by showing up when it matters." "Like you didn't," a voice whispered in his mind. "When Emma needed you, you chose your career." Emma excused herself to take Liam to the restroom before dessert, and Marcus sat alone with his thoughts and the remains of his meal. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the calendar that governed his life. Surgery rotations, board meetings, conferences, speaking engagements, every hour accounted for, every day planned. When had he become this person? When had success stopped feeling like achievement and started feeling like obligation? His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Victoria mentioned dinner ended early. Everything all right? Marcus typed back. Everything's fine. Talk tomorrow. But everything wasn't fine. Everything was about to change, though he didn't fully realize it yet. When Emma and Liam returned, Liam now bouncing with the restless energy of a child who'd been sitting too long, Marcus made a decision. There's something I want to talk to you about, he said to Emma. Not tonight, but maybe coffee this week. Just the two of us? Emma studied his face, searching for something. Marcus, if this is about charity, it's not charity. He leaned forward. Emma, seeing you tonight, meeting Liam, it reminded me of something I've been trying to ignore. I made a choice 4 years ago. I chose my career over us, and I've told myself every day since that it was the right choice, that I needed to focus, to build something important. You did build something important, Emma said softly. I built a successful practice. I invented a device that saves lives. I made more money than my grandfather ever dreamed of making. Marcus's voice was quiet, but intense. But I'm 42 years old, Emma, and I eat alone at the same table every Tuesday night, dating women who are perfectly suitable but don't make me feel anything real. I've been so focused on fixing other people's hearts that I never dealt with my own. Emma's eyes glistened. Marcus, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm not trying to insert myself into your life, but I'd like to try to be, I don't know, a friend at least. Someone who can help if you'll let me. Before Emma could respond, Liam tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Mr. Dr. Marcus, can we get dessert? Mummy says the chocolate cake here is famous. Marcus looked down at the hopeful little face, then back up at Emma. He saw the conflict in her expression. Pride warring with pragmatism, independence struggling against the reality of single parenthood on a paralegal's salary. How about we all get dessert? Marcus suggested. And Emma, you can think about my offer. No pressure. Just think about it. Emma nodded slowly. Okay, I'll think about it. As Marcus signaled for the dessert menu, he caught his own reflection in the window, a successful doctor in an expensive suit, sitting with a woman he'd once loved and her son, while rain continued to fall on Boston. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in his corner office at Boston General Hospital, staring at the CT scans on his computer screen without really seeing them. The November wind rattled the windows, and the first snow of the season was falling softly over the city. His phone sat on the desk beside him, Emma's contact information still displayed on the screen. They'd met for coffee twice since that dinner at Meridian. The first time had been awkward. Two people trying to navigate the space between who they'd been and who they were now. The second time had been easier, with Emma sharing more about her struggles as a single mother, and Marcus opening up about the emptiness he felt despite his success. But he hadn't seen Liam again, and that felt like a deliberate choice on Emma's part. She was protecting her son from getting attached to someone who might disappear. And Marcus couldn't blame her for that. He'd disappeared once before. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Ashford, your 3 o'clock is here. Marcus glanced at his schedule, confused. He didn't have a 3 o'clock. But when his assistant opened the door wider, Emma stood there, Liam's hand clasped in hers. The boy was pale, his usual energy replaced by a listless exhaustion that made Marcus's medical instincts immediately alert. Emma? What's wrong? I'm sorry to just show up like this, Emma said, her voice tight with controlled panic. But Liam has been complaining about chest pain and shortness of breath for 2 days. I took him to his pediatrician this morning, and she heard a heart murmur. She referred us to a pediatric cardiologist, but the earliest appointment isn't until next month, and I thought maybe you could... Come here, buddy, Marcus said, already moving around his desk. His professional training kicked in, pushing aside every complicated emotion. "Can you tell me what's bothering you?" Liam leaned against his mother, looking small and scared. "My chest hurts sometimes, like when I run, and I get really tired." Marcus knelt down to the boy's level. "I'm going to listen to your heart, okay? It won't hurt at all." He looked up at Emma. "Do you have the referral paperwork?" She handed him a folder with trembling hands. Marcus scanned the pediatrician's notes, his expression growing more serious. Then he pulled out his stethoscope and gently placed it against Liam's chest. What he heard made his blood run cold. The murmur was distinct, a harsh systolic sound that suggested a ventricular septal defect, possibly a significant one. This wasn't just a benign childhood murmur. This was serious. "Emma, I need to take him down to the cardiac imaging department right now." Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "This can't wait until next month." Emma's face went white. "Is it bad?" "Oh God, Marcus, is it bad?" "It's manageable, but we need to see exactly what we're dealing with." He hit the intercom button on his desk. "This is Dr. Ashford. I need a pediatric echocardiogram suite prepped immediately. Emergency priority." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the darkened imaging room, watching the ultrasound screen as the technician moved the probe across Liam's small chest. Emma stood beside him, her hand gripping his arm so tightly it hurt, but he didn't pull away. The screen showed what Marcus had suspected. A moderate to large ventricular septal defect, a hole between the two lower chambers of Liam's heart. The defect was allowing oxygen-rich blood to mix with oxygen-poor blood, forcing the heart to work harder and potentially leading to complications if left untreated. "He needs surgery," Marcus said quietly, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Not immediately, but soon, within the next few weeks." Emma made a sound that was almost a sob. "Surgery, oh God. How much does something like this cost? I have insurance through work, but it's not great, and the deductible—" "Emma, stop!" Marcus turned to face her, his hands on her shoulders. "The cost doesn't matter. What matters is getting Liam the care he needs." "I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm telling you." His voice was firm. "I'm going to perform the surgery myself. We'll do it here at Boston General, which has one of the best pediatric cardiac programs in the country. And you're not going to worry about the cost." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "Marcus, I can't let you do that. That's not why I came here. I just wanted you to look at him, to tell me if it was urgent or if we could wait." "It's urgent enough that we're not waiting." Marcus looked over at Liam, who had been so brave during the ultrasound, lying still just like the technician had asked. "He's going to be fine, Emma. This is a procedure I've done hundreds of times, but you have to trust me." "I do trust you," Emma whispered. "That's what scares me, because I trusted you once before, and you left." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, but he couldn't deny their truth. "I know," he said softly. "I know I let you down. I chose my career, my ambitions, over what we could have built together. And I've regretted it every day since, even when I was too proud to admit it." He took her hand. "But Emma, I'm not walking away from this, from him, from you, not this time." "Why?" The question was simple but loaded with years of hurt. "Because that night at the restaurant, seeing you and Liam, it woke me up. I realized I've been performing a kind of surgery on myself for the past 4 years, cutting away the parts of me that felt too much, that wanted more than professional success. I've been fixing hearts while ignoring my own." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "Let me do this, not because I'm trying to buy my way back into your life, but because I can help, and because that's what you do for people you care about." The imaging was complete, and a nurse was helping Liam sit up, offering him a sticker for being such a good patient. The boy looked tired but less scared now, comforted by his mother's presence and the gentle staff. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus arranged everything. He consulted with his best pediatric anesthesiologist, scheduled the operating room, and coordinated with the hospital's financial department to ensure Emma wouldn't receive a single bill. He used every bit of influence and authority he'd accumulated over the years, calling in favors and making it clear that this case was his top priority. By the time they left the hospital that evening, with Liam scheduled for surgery in 10 days, Emma looked exhausted but hopeful. "Thank you," she said, as they stood in the lobby, Liam dozing against her shoulder, "for everything. Thank me when he's recovered and back to collecting dinosaur facts," Marcus replied. "Marcus, about what you said earlier, about not walking away. We don't have to figure everything out right now," he interrupted gently. "Right now, we focus on Liam. The rest, we'll take it one day at a time." Emma nodded, adjusting her grip on her sleeping son. One day at a time. 10 days later, Marcus stood at the scrub sink, methodically washing his hands in the precise ritual he'd performed thousands of times. Through the window of the operating room, he could see Liam on the table, already under anesthesia, looking impossibly small beneath the sterile drapes. In the gallery above, Emma sat with her mother, who had flown in from Texas the day before. Marcus had met her briefly, a strong woman with Emma's same eyes who had thanked him repeatedly, while also making it very clear that if anything happened to her grandson, there would be hell to pay. He'd appreciated her directness. "Ready, Dr. Ashford?" His surgical nurse held out his gloves. "Ready?" The surgery took 4 hours. Marcus worked with the focused intensity that had made him one of the best cardiothoracic surgeons in the country. He closed the ventricular septal defect with a small patch, using techniques he'd refined over years of practice. His hands were steady, his mind clear. This wasn't just another procedure. This was Liam. This mattered in a way that transcended professional pride. When he finally stepped back from the table, satisfied with his work, he allowed himself a moment to exhale. "Nice work, everyone. Let's close and get him to recovery." An hour later, Marcus found Emma in the surgical waiting room. She stood the moment she saw him, her mother's hand on her shoulder. "He did beautifully," Marcus said, and watched the tension drain from Emma's body. "The repair was successful. His heart is already functioning better. He'll need to stay in the hospital for about a week for monitoring, but he's going to be fine." Emma covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking with relief. Her mother wrapped her in a hug while Marcus stood there, still in his surgical scrubs, feeling the weight of what he'd just done settle over him. "Can I see him?" Emma asked when she could speak again. "He's in recovery now. Give it another hour and then yes, he'll still be groggy from the anesthesia, but he'll know you're there." Later that evening, Marcus stood outside Liam's room in the pediatric ICU, watching through the window as Emma sat beside her son's bed, holding his small hand while he slept. The monitors beeped steadily, showing a heart rhythm that was now strong and regular. His phone buzzed with congratulations texts from colleagues who'd heard about the successful surgery. A hospital administrator wanted to discuss his schedule for next month. His mother was calling, probably to ask about Thanksgiving plans, but Marcus ignored it all, because in that moment, watching Emma keep vigil beside her son, he understood something fundamental. Success wasn't measured in patents or publications or the size of your bank account. It wasn't about corner tables at exclusive restaurants or penthouse apartments with river views. Success was this: having the skills to help someone when it mattered most, being there when you were needed, choosing love over ambition, connection over isolation, presence over prestige. The door to Liam's room opened, and Emma stepped out, careful not to disturb her sleeping son. Her eyes were red-rimmed but peaceful. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey yourself," Marcus smiled. "How's he doing? He woke up for a few minutes, asked if you fixed his heart." Emma's voice caught. "I told him yes. You fixed it perfectly." They stood there in the quiet hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, the distant sound of monitors and soft footsteps echoing through the halls. "Marcus, I need to say something," Emma began. 4 years ago, When you chose your career over us, I was devastated. I thought you didn't love me enough. But watching you these past few weeks, seeing you with Liam, I realize it wasn't that simple. Emma, let me finish, she continued. You weren't ready then. You needed to become the surgeon you are now. You needed to prove something to yourself. And maybe I needed to grow up too, to become the mother I am now. Maybe we both needed to become these people before we could be right for each other. Marcus reached for her hand. And now? Now, I think maybe we could try again. Slowly, carefully, with a 4-year-old chaperone who will definitely keep us honest. She smiled through fresh tears. But only if you're sure. Because I come with baggage now, an ex-husband, a son, a complicated life. I'm not the girl you dated 4 years ago. Good, Marcus said firmly. Because I'm not the same man either. I'm hopefully better. Or at least trying to be. He squeezed her hand. Emma, that night at the restaurant when I said, she's with me, I meant it in more ways than I realized. You were with me. You've been with me, in the back of my mind for 4 years. Every achievement felt hollow because I couldn't share it with you. Every success reminded me of what I'd given up. What about your life, your schedule? You're one of the most sought-after surgeons in the country. Then I'll rearrange my schedule. I'll cut back on the speaking engagements and the board positions. I'll make time. He cupped her face gently. Emma, I've spent 4 years building a career. I'd like to spend the next 40 years building a life. With you, with Liam, if you'll have me. Emma leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. Liam asked me something yesterday, while we were waiting for today. He asked if you were going to be his dad. Marcus's heart stuttered. What did you tell him? I told him that you were my friend, someone who cares about both of us very much. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. But I think he's smarter than we give him credit for. He said, good. I like him. He has kind eyes. Kids are usually right about these things, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. A nurse poked her head out of Liam's room. He's asking for both of you. They went in together, and Liam's eyes lit up when he saw them. Still groggy, but undeniably brighter than he'd been in weeks. You fixed it, Liam said to Marcus, his voice small and scratchy. I did, buddy. Your heart is working perfectly now. Does that mean I can run again? When I'm better? You can run, play, do everything you did before, even better, actually. Liam smiled, then looked between Marcus and his mother with that too-knowing expression that children sometimes have. Are you going to stay? He asked Marcus. The question was simple, but its implications were enormous. Emma held her breath, waiting. Marcus sat down on the other side of Liam's bed, his hand finding Emma's across the small body between them. Yeah, buddy, I'm gonna stay. Good, Liam said, his eyes already drifting closed again. We can be a team, like the Avengers. Emma laughed softly, tears streaming down her face. Marcus squeezed her hand, and in that moment, surrounded by the quiet beeps of hospital equipment and the soft breathing of a healing child, he felt more successful than he'd ever felt standing in any operating room or receiving any award. Because this messy, complicated, beautiful thing that was slowly forming between the three of them, this was what mattered. Not the corner table at an exclusive restaurant, not the penthouse apartment, not the billionaire status or the medical innovations. This was everything.